again to Meeting of Minds, in which various distinguished figures from different periods of history come together to exchange views on important questions. The special theme of our program this evening entitles us to call it Shakespeare on Love. And now, here is your host, Mr. Steve Allen.
Thank you, and welcome again. This evening's Meeting of Minds is going to be a bit unusual. I just have that feeling. You see, through my regular contacts in the great beyond, I had extended an invitation to William Shakespeare, which he kindly accepted. I thought it might be interesting to have Tolstoy as another guest, since he'd been so critical of Shakespeare, and a few other ideas along that line had occurred to us here. But then I began to receive strange messages that certain other personages wish to appear with Shakespeare. It's been a very odd situation, and the upshot of it is that we're not quite certain even now just who the other guests are going to be. Perhaps Shakespeare himself will resolve the mystery for us. We'll see. Or, inasmuch as Shakespeare is considered by many to be both the world's greatest poet and also greatest dramatist, it might be worthwhile to simply interview him alone for our first hour, and then just hope for the best as regards part two of our discussion next week. You'll note that I did not make the flat statement that Shakespeare was the greatest dramatist and the greatest poet. I said he was considered so by many. Now that raises an interesting point which emerged from our recent conversation with Aristotle, Sun Yat-sen, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and Machiavelli, that in assessing any personage from past ages, we generally take into account the final verdict of history, and consequently overlook the fact that not only during their lifetimes, but even subsequently, the world jury that voted that verdict was by no means unanimous. If there was such a thing as a planet all inhabitants of which were purely rational, this would very probably not be the case. But as we know to our sorrow, ours is a planet on which the light of pure sweet reason glows very feebly and fitfully. What this means as regards critical judgments of almost anything is that the judges bring to the moment of criticism an enormous baggage of non-rational considerations, among which are their own philosophical biases and social prejudices, not to mention personal idiosyncrasies, neuroses, love, hates, fears, whatever. And as one consequence of this, we find that even the great figures of history, whether they were artists, philosophers, saints, or seers, have been subjected to far more criticism than the average person would receive in 100 lifetimes. Most of us have to be content with criticism from our loved ones, friends, and acquaintances, whereas the great of the world are honored by the slings and arrows of millions. As for Shakespeare now, he'll have no trouble with me. I share the dominant critical view that he was a genius with dazzling gifts as poet and dramatist. But considering the degree of his eminence, it's odd that relatively little is known about his personal life. One of the reasons for this, I suppose, is that in his own time, he was not nearly as big a deal as we now understand him to have been. Consequently, the biographers of his age, although they scrupulously recorded the doings of other figures of Elizabethan England, didn't pay all that much attention to Shakespeare. Well, hopefully this evening we'll learn more right from the horse's mouth. Speaking personally, I can hardly wait. Ladies and gentlemen, it is, as you might imagine, an honor indeed to introduce William Shakespeare. How do you do, Mr. Shakespeare?
How do I do? I do as well as I might expect to do, given the circumstances of my strange estate.
And how do you perceive those circumstances?
Why, I've been summoned from the privacy we find when freed from the bounds of time and space, not knowing what I might expect, but tempted by the lure of fresh experience. Please.
Thank you. This is incredible. You choose to address us in iambic pentameter?
As the spirit moves me.
Ah. Well, the spirit that moved you, sir, must have been one with remarkable powers, as the word inspiration itself shows. As you know, the ancients believed that remarkable creativity in the arts was not something for which the individual himself was responsible, but rather that spirits, in the literal sense, inspired, breathed into the artist the dazzling conceptions which he then gives to the world. How do you feel on that observation?
Well, the first man who thought that must have been either a remarkably humble artist or perhaps an envious critic. But this flower of ancient Greek speculation has taken no root in Christian soil. A genius does his own hard work. But perhaps the theory of literal inspiration grew out of the artist's own inability to understand the sources of his creativity. None of us has ever known where his special gifts come from.
What can you tell us of your family?
Well, my father, John Shakespeare, was a civic official of Stratford. He was by trade a glover.
Glover?
Yes. He made gloves.
Yeah. You know, it never before occurred to me that the name Glover, Mr. Glover, was simply that of a tradesman.
Oh, yes. Well, this is true of many common English names. Mr. Taylor, Mr. Cotter.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Teacher.
Yes, Mr. Thatcher.
Mr. Grazier.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Farmer.
Yes. My father had some experience of farming, by the way.
Oh, is that right? It would be interesting to know more about your father's family.
Why?
Well, it might enable us to understand you better.
How?
I don't know, really.
Nor do I.
Well, to heck with it.
Perhaps you would pluck out the heart of my mystery, eh?
Yeah, if I could.
Or you're implying, perhaps, that my abilities were somehow inherited from a talented progenitor. People assume that such speculation explains, as you would have it, genius, but it really does nothing of the kind. It simply passes the question along to an earlier point in time. I know of no evidence that genius is inherited. Intelligence, maybe.
Yes. Perhaps a genius is just some sort of a fortunate freak.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
Were you your parents' only child, sir?
No. I had 3 brothers, 4 sisters, but not of that. And I remember it was in 1577. I believe I was 64, 74, 13 years old at the time. My father suffered certain financial reverses, and this led in turn to a curtailment of my education.
Too bad. I understand, though, that you were married while still quite a young fellow.
Oh, yes. Yes, at age 18. One Anne Hathaway.
A girl your own age?
No. She was some 8 years my senior. Or should I say my signora? Very bad joke, wasn't it?
Yes. You used to do a number of those, if you don't mind my...
No, that's quite all right. Everyone's their own critic.
Yes. Well, now, history knows that you subsequently left the town of Stratford.
Yes, that was 1584, as I recall. I had gotten into... There was a bit of a scrape in town, you know, so I decided to see something of the world. London seemed the obvious choice. That was, after all, where the theatrical companies were.
Yes, there would, as you say, have been theater productions in London in your youth. But had any traveling companies reached the smaller market town of Stratford?
Oh, yes, indeed. And I was, for my first exposure, as you say, stage struck. I didn't at first know whether I wanted to act, write, carry messages or what, but I knew that the theater was to be my rightful home, and it was in my 20s that I began to try my hand as a playwright.
With what results?
Well, nothing notable. First, I actually didn't quite know what it was I wanted to write. A lot of the original impetus, I suppose, came from the simple feeling, after I'd seen a few plays, that, well, I might do better.
You know, sir, one of the problems with interviewing you is that one hardly knows which of you to address. I mean, you are, after all, not only poet and dramatist, as the world knows, but very much a philosopher, a prophet, a language maker, a musician, actor.
Ah, yes, actor, yes, I was. Yes.
In fact, I understand that among your various roles was that of the father's ghost in Hamlet.
Yes. You know, the company seemed determined to confine me to some smaller parts. I don't know exactly why that was. I felt I had, at any rate...
They
never
wanted
mind
you to
that.
keep writing, perhaps.
Yes, perhaps. Let's hope so. At any rate, which one of me will you choose?
Well, I'll tell you, another self, the lover. That's, or at least the one, I should say, that knows about love. That's the one subject we would like or love to hear you discourse on this evening.
Oh, well, that is quite an offer, I must say. Lovers, you know, and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination, all compact. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That is the madman. And the lover, all as frantic, sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. And the poet's eye, in a fine frenzy rolling, doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, And as imagination bodies forth the shapes of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to forms and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. I find myself curious, my good fellow, to know just who it is I am to meet here this evening. Did I understand you a moment ago to mention Tolstoy?
Well, yes, but I don't believe he'll be joining us.
Oh, good. I'm very relieved.
Oh?
Yes, you know, Tolstoy is supposedly quite an opinionated fellow. I understand his opinions of me were not the most flattering. But if not Tolstoy, then who?
Well, that's just it. Ordinarily, I make decisions about our guest list myself, but in this instance, the situation seems to have gotten rather out of hand.
I don't understand.
I don't either, but you see, the main... Oh, would you excuse me for just a moment? I'm not quite sure. I'll be back in just a moment.
Well, this is very strange, I must say. Unless there is a market for suspense, this situation does not seem promising.
Yes?
Is he in there?
Yes, but...
May I enter?
Not just yet. I mean, I don't believe the arranged... Would you excuse me for just one moment? Just wait there, please. Oh, dear. Mr. Shakespeare, if you'll excuse me, sir, our next guest is, at least I think she is, the Dark Lady of the Sonnets.
Oh, my God.
Is there anything wrong?
I do not want to see that woman.
Well, she seems determined to see you, sir.
Yes, she was always remarkable for her determination, if little else. Well, if she is coming, I am going.
Oh, no, please. First of all, I'm not sure the lady is the one to whom you wrote your famous sonnets, and even if...
Ah, there you are, sweet William.
Now, see here, I was not told that you were going to be here.
And what if you had been told? Your vanity still would have brought you here.
You see?
So, you're going to speak of love, are you?
Well, why not? Our Lord himself tells us that it is the greatest of the virtues.
Well, certainly it's the only one we repent.
Now, sir, I did not agree to this, and I am not going to submit to it.
Oh, but sir, wait just a moment. There are millions of people watching. They'd be terribly disappointed if you... Excuse me, madam.
My name is Woman.
Oh, I don't...
Cowards. Love. Ha! Of love, you'd learn what Will Shakespeare has said. He little knew more when alive than dead. You think, how dare I show him disrespect? Well, let me some disjointed thoughts connect. This much I'll say for Will. He was a man. That's the worst that anyone can say. He laughed and wept when contrary to plan, was weak in virtue, prone to disarray. He was a bit of all things to all men. I'm not impressed because I knew him when. I know, with words, he had a wondrous power. I do not criticize a line he wrote. He dropped sweet verses from his ivory tower. But his smooth words on love stick in my throat. Oh, there's plenty I could tell you if I would. No doubt you'd do the self-same if you could. But I'm on the stage and you're in your seat, so I'll have to call the turn, my sweets. But now to business. It's your business, too, to learn what foolish things we are and do. To learn of love is so to learn of life. Come lover, maid, come husband, mistress, wife. Attend to Will's poor creatures, princes, kings, adventurers, who'll tell of many things, but chiefly love in various disguise, of love grown dull or taken by surprise, of lust, of passion innocent and wild, wherefore Adonis dreamed or Venus smiled. I am one woman, and I am them all. Dear lords and ladies, I stand at your call to serve my Romeo, Hamlet, or my Moor, to be considered virgin, yes, and whore, and all for love. This wondrous something rare, that seems as insubstantial as thin air, but call it nothing? Never, say not so. Are smiles nothing that love brings to glow? Is whispering nothing? Is leaning cheek to cheek? Is meeting noses, kissing with inside lips, stopping the career of laughter with a sigh? A note infallible of breaking honesty, horsing foot on foot, skulking in corners, wishing clocks more swift, hours, minutes, noon, midnight, and all eyes blind with a pin and web, but theirs only, that would unseen be wicked? Is this nothing? Why, then the world and all that's in it's nothing. The covering sky is nothing, our planet nothing, my life is nothing, nor nothing have these nothings, if this be nothing. But let us see what wisdom on the theme of love poor Will put in his creatures' mouths. Who would you? Hamlet? Romeo? Othello? So it'll be. But here come our lovers now. Mark them well. Hope they remember what they came to tell.
Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. So once I thought. But when at last I slipped into the airy realm that men call death, my fate I found no heaven was nor hell. I was condemned for having wasted life to endlessly relive it, until the day the last man burns my record and forgets. And so I wander through this lonely world, crawling beneath my heaven and my earth, still like a whore, unpacked my heart with words, in every language and in every clime, punished for my sins with too much time.
Among those sins, sir, if I may remind, was your harsh treatment of Ophelia. She did not any wrong. Rather than wife, you chose to make her waster of her life.
What do you read, good sir?
Words. Words. Words.
Proving a factual answer is not always the best. What do the words convey?
Ideas and actions.
Have you a preference twixt the two?
Why, like yourself, I'd be a man of action, but my intellect inhibits what I do. Thus conscience doth make cowards of us all. And so I circle once again to words.
In truth, 'twould be too quiet here without them. Your name, sir?
Hamlet, Prince of Denmark.
Your servant, sir.
I need none. May you serve as friend in time.
I well could use a friend in this strange spot.
What, strange to you as well? Where are we then?
Why, out of time and out of place, I'd say.
The mood is odd and yet familiar. One thing is clear, all this world's a stage. Could we be ghosts?
Speak for yourself. I know I'm not. I'm real as ever was.
And what's reality?
I'm sure, my lord, you'd testify 'twas real if in between your ribs I slipped this steel.
Thus driving home your point, my friend, too well. You would indeed prove flesh and blood exist. But what of spirits?
Call an exorcist. Why are we here?
A question never rightly answered through all time. Your name, sir?
Romeo Montague, of Verona.
Why, what have we in common?
Everything, my lord, except for a few details.
Your father's name?
I have 3 fathers, sir.
You must have had a wondrous mother. But who the 3?
The one in heaven, the one in flesh.
Yes, so far the same as I.
And lastly,
Yes?
the one who found me, gave me to the world by setting me upon 10,000 stages.
Dear brother.
How say you, sir?
Will Shakespeare is the father of us both.
Could he have sent us here at last to meet?
This mystery we should hasten to pursue.
At once, at once. But where's a bloody clue?
Well, here's for one. I died for love. And you?
That very fate was mine. I swear it's true. And at the very thought I still could weep, as if just now I'd found my love asleep.
We are condemned like sinners to our hell, for loving neither wisely nor too well. Be of good cheer. Perhaps heaven waits tomorrow. From deeper streams, dear friend, doth spring my sorrow.
Despite the reenactments of my fate, some hope cries madly that it's not too late.
To be pained again by nothing more than youth's intrepid servant ignorance. That like an infant crying o'er spilt milk, assumes the present sorrows quite the worst, and looks not to the future with its shocks that stand like shadows lined along our paths.
So let us talk of love, my friend, and see if somehow my heart's loss enriches thee. Yes, love. We'll blend our stories into one to see what moral shines when we are done. Whose loss occasions such deep melancholy?
That of my father.
Ah, you must have loved him much.
I loved him firstly as a father, Romeo, and then as a hero, and lastly as a man. My heart sustained 3 wounds.
You weep then at the loss of love.
Do not we all? We're taught to from the cradle.
Quite so, we are. But these your thoughts on love strike echoes in my heart that hearing, I must now relate to that the same disease from which I ache, am cured to ache again.
Young friend, you learn how loves take many forms. There is a love of bodies, heady passion, that multitudes can satisfy, I swear. And there are other, higher, sweeter loves that on our hearts do make such great demands that only few, perchance for even one, can properly accommodate. But know that there are loves for brothers, sisters, friends, for parents, cousins, strangers, dogs, and cats. You are a man, dear Romeo, which means you are a son, which means in turn a father drew you forth from out the timeless void of all that never happened past. I weep for my lost father.
This shows a loving care in you, dear Hamlet. But you should know your father lost a father. That father lost his, and so it shall be until the general ending. Therefore cease lament. It is a fault against heaven, a fault against nature, and in reason's common course most certain. None lives on earth, but he is born to die.
Ah, Romeo, 'tis easy for you now to lightly sweep my sharpest pains aside. As for that matter, I can nod at yours. But all the good Samaritans who've ever lived could do no more than bind up fleshly wounds, assist with weights, bring water to our thirsts, and set us on whatever proper roads our solitary fates might then decree. They cannot bleed for us, or weep for us, or die for us, but each must bear his own. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Within a month, married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month. Yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left a flushing in her galled eyes. She married. Why, she, even she. God, a beast devoid of reason would have mourned longer. Frailty thy name is woman.
One moment, sir. You claim we are inconstant?
Inconstant, constantly.
Compared to what, I pray? To dogs, to clouds, to apes, to birds, to seasons in their turn?
To men, you silly woman!
So, silly now, you say, as well as frail. That we are frail is all too clear, my prince. The cause? That we are cursed with being human. Humanity is frail and vain and wild. It must be so, as God the Father's child.
Who was that?
Bear no mind.
What was your mother's crime?
Why, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. Oh, wicked, wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. Ere yet those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body, like Niobe, all tears, married with my uncle. Well, it is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Your tongue, Lord Hamlet, seems most nimbly free. Could man talk more? It seems not so to me. Perhaps, good friend, within the presence of those sinners you'd uncertainly accuse, tongue-holding is suggested. But you see, I'm not a party to your tragedy. So freely speak, I pray you. For 'tis known that in the speaking out of wild emotion, some strange release is thereby soon achieved that doth make light the rumbling inner pressure that otherwise explodes our hearts and minds. At any rate, dear friend, your father's gone. Not all your tears or prayers can call him back. So after an appropriate sorrow's felt, why not apply the energy of your emotion no more to that lost, lonely realm, the past, which spite our hopes we never shall improve, but rather to the other nearby kingdoms that in this world we have some hope to conquer.
Kingdoms.
I speak of now and future. There's the one we can be resolutely active in, but as regards the other we only plan. Yet, as I say, 'twere better so to do than waste our dreams and speculations on the deeds that are solidified like crystal. for all the endless time that lies behind, impervious to our saddest, fiercest hopes.
Although you say properly that past affairs cannot be rearranged, we can withal set out our future course the wisely more if we're instructed by our past mistakes. What I require to balance despair's revenge. The word itself is not but angry sound unless the past is carefully regarded.
Enough of this, good prince. Why come you here?
I have a duty that I must perform, though I can fully apprehend it not. Yet moved I am in some mysterious way that any man might tell of having felt. You witnesses in judgment here convene can each remember, if you call it forth, feeling compelled by fear, or by desire, by avarice, or wish to avoid loss, by hunger, by drowsiness, by weakness, or any of 1,000 shocks that drive us on when otherwise we'd lie like sullen cattle in the roadside's dust. Just so. Some odd foreknowledge of my fate requires me here and now, in this strange place, anticipating I'll receive a message.
From whom would it be meet to ask?
Your curiosity is resolved already, Romeo. If you would turn, and stripping off the prejudice that makes us blind to much regard, I say, the stately specter who now comes our way.
Truth, my lord, it comes. Though I do not believe in it, yet surely something here I sense.
Angels and ministers of grace defend us. Be thou spirit of health, or goblin damned. Bring with the airs from heaven, or blasts from hell. Be thy intense, wicked, or charitable, thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak with thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, King, Father, Royal Dane, O answer me! Let me not burst in ignorance, but tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements.
It beckons you, as though it had something to impart to you alone. But do not go with it.
It will not speak. Then I will follow it.
What if it tempts you toward the flood, my lord? Or to the dreadful summit of the cliff that beetles o'er his base into the sea, and there assume some other horrible form which might deprive your sovereignty of reason and draw you into madness? Think.
What should be the fear? I do not set my life at a pin's fee, and as for my soul, what can it do to that, being a thing immortal as itself? I will.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a time to walk the night and all the day confined to flaming fire, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away.
Alas, poor ghost, from purgatory come.
Nay, pity me not, but to my unfolding lend thy listening ear. But that I am forbid to tell the secrets of my prison house, I would a tale unfold whose lightest word would harrow thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make thy two eyes like stars that start from their spheres, thy knotted and confined locks to part, and each particular hair to stand on end like quills upon the fretful porcupine. But this eternal blazon must not be to ears of flesh and blood. Hamlet, if ever thou didst thy dear father love,
Oh, God!
revenge his foul and most unnatural murder.
Murder?
Aye, murder in the highest degree, as in the least 'tis bad, but mine most foul, beastly, and unnatural. A serpent stung me. He that did sting thy father's heart now wears his crown.
Oh, my pathetic soul, my uncle!
Aye, that adulterous beast won to his will with gifts, so wicked will and gifts that have the power so to seduce thy most seeming virtuous queen.
Oh, God!
If thou hast nature in thee, bear it not, but let not thy heart conspire against thy mother aught. Leave her to heaven, and to the burden that her conscience bears.
God's wounds, what's to become of you?
Once more to walk the old accustomed path. An instrument of vengeance. Oh,
cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. I say again, you cannot change the past, and never ought to venture out on orders from thin air.
Thin air?
You doubt? I do. Consider, friend, I pray, that we have both been sore deceived, that what you took as real was built not of true spirit, but of dreams, that whose firm voice you heard, or thought you heard, came truly, not from death's unknown domain, but from the echoous cavern of your mind, wherein wild giants rage. You know their names.
I do?
Yes, jealousy and mad desire. Consider what foul imaginings result when monstrous creatures such as these convene, each guided by none other than itself, and each unused to reprimand or rule. It is the kingdom of pure wintry chaos. It lures us to none other than our death, if we're not guided by another sense superior and lighted by the virtues.
How now? You've seen, you've heard, and still you doubt.
I do indeed, my prince. But doubt is not the same as flat denial. I heard, as did these witnesses, and yet we surely know what strange contagions touch our weakly minds, that one man's madness may affect another. The hypnotists make use of this, conspiring with weaknesses that grow in us from birth, to make us certain that the moon's the sun, that snow is hot, or fire is cold as ice. I saw a man once, freely hypnotized, who took a Spanish onion in his hand, snapped an enormous portion with his jaws, he having been assured it was the sweetest, juiciest apple he'd e'er enjoyed. If it be so, then how can we be sure that I have done no more than share your visions?
Well, something in me is sure if you are not.
If only there were others who could witness, adjudicate, decide the issue for us.
Would that it was so. For to bring in a third would do no more than far extrapolate that doubt which saps the iron from our wills. I'd say his judgment good if it conformed to my own prejudice. And it did not. Why, I would as soon declare him enemy.
You would, you silly man. Circumstance could change your course as quickly as a blink.
Not so.
10,000 times just so. We need but add a third with stronger steel than your own. You apprehend him stronger, braver, tall. Thus cowardice makes conscience for us all.
Your pleasure, sir.
Peace, good soldier.
A pleasure all too rare in my experience.
He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. The basic principle of guerrilla warfare.
Discretion is the better part of valor.
Woman, would you stir one against the other? We seek to know how we may love our brother.
Don't let me stop you. Pray proceed.
Othello, called the Moor of Venice.
Greetings, General. Your servant Romeo. This man is Hamlet, Prince of Denmark.
Your Highness.
Oh, we do not stand on ceremony here, good soldier.
You know me?
Only insofar as you know me. Enough of that. You're just in time to judge.
Of what, my lord?
Of whether there be ghosts or no. And if there are, then whether I've been visited by my late father.
And if you have?
Why then, I must prepare my soul for vengeance.
I've never known one not prepared, my lord. Some might think revenge is soldier's business, but oft a man will shoulder us aside and do the job himself. Your end, I fear, will be the very same, whether spirits from the grave return or not.
How came you to acquire such wisdom, soldier?
It grows from my disinterestedness. Having no stake in this good man's predicament, I may assume a sage neutrality.
As regards your own predicament?
I beg your counsel, sir, and yours.
We had begun a discourse on sweet love.
Continue.
Only if you'll join. You know of it?
I died of it.
Your story, pray.
Good Romeo and Hamlet. I'm rich now, and that poor hindsight, which if 'twas seen before, would have reversed my fate.
And yet, dark Moor, a happy ending to your tale might render us less interested, I fear.
In all events, what's done is done. There's no denying there's a market for extremes, and if we'll not have one, then haste the other. I spoke of thwarted young romantic love. Brave Hamlet here of love in other guise.
Yes, love of father.
Really? I saw it more as love of mother. That love which men first count a glowing virtue, but if it not diminished through the years, leads to vile guilts but poorly understood.
If anything is richly understood, and watch that talk about my mother, friend.
I'll say whatever I damn please.
Not in my presence, by God.
Gentlemen!
He's no gentleman.
He thinks he's placed so high and mighty. My problems were a good deal worse than yours.
Oh, you think so? You think it's easy being Hamlet?
I fail to see the difficulty.
All right, then you be Hamlet for a while.
All right, and you be Romeo, if you think you're man enough.
You bastard.
There.
Now, I am Romeo.
And I'm Hamlet.
And I am bored.
Now that that's settled, may I continue, gentlemen?
Most certainly. Before this jackanapes erupts again. Pray, share with us your story. On which aspect of love will you address us?
I bring a tale of jealousy. That soured segment of a lovely whole. That bitter dripping of the sweetest fruit. That poison from a medicine distilled.
We've all made some mistake. Pray, what was yours?
That I was such a deadly judge of character. I could not tell friend from foe, thinking each to be the other. My friend, one Michael Cassio, a Florentine, a mathematician, an officer, held naught but the warmest regard for me, and innocent affection for my wife. He, I thought, my friend, the vile Iago, let him be instructive to all men. The warning signal being flattery, whene'er it's heard, be on thy guard, good friends. For though there moments be when it's sincere, some kinds of compliments are less than dear.
And what the soil from which your sorrows grew?
From Venice, which you may well know. I, mightily by daybreak, had destroyed the Turk, and swept the seas of his foul bark and threat, albeit with some help from savage nature, and so deserved Venetian honors well, and double triumph. Took the fairest prize the city could bestow, Desdemona, daughter of Brabantio. Had I but known at the drama's start that Iago profaned what he claimed to bless by telling Brabantio his daughter and your servant were abed.
I'll wager you were.
Iago warned me that Brabantio was much beloved and had in his effect a voice potential as double as the Duke's. He would divorce us or put upon us such restraint and grievance as the law with all its might to enforce on would give him cable.
You didn't let him get away with that, I hope.
I did not. Let him do his spite, I said. My services which I've done the Signore will out-tongue his complaints. My troth was justified by senators who put the interests of the city at the fore. At which Brabantio, her father, pardoned me. He had supposed I'd stolen Desdemona by medicines and drugs bought of mountebanks, by witchcraft or by magic of my own.
And had you so?
'Twas never thus. I spoke my heart. Most potent, grave and reverend signors, my very noble and approved good masters, that I have ta'en away this old man's daughter, it is most true. True, I have married her. The very head and front of my offending hath this extent, no more. Rude am I in my speech, and little blessed with the soft phrase of peace. For since these arms of mine had 7 years' pith, till now some 9 moons wasted, they've used their dearest action in the tented field. And little of this great world can I speak, more than pertains to feats of broil and battle. Therefore little shall I grace my cause in speaking for myself. Yet, by your gracious patience, I will a round, unvarnished tale deliver of my whole course of love.
What drugs, what charms, what conjuration, and what mighty magic. For such proceeding am I charged withal. I won his daughter. I do beseech you, send for the lady to the Sagittary, and let her speak of me before her father. If you do find me foul in her report, the trust, the office I do hold of you, not only take away, but let your sentence even fall upon my life. Her father loved me, oft invited me, still questioned me the story of my life from year to year, the battles, sieges, fortunes that I passed. I ran it through, even from my boyish days to the very moment that he bade me tell it, wherein I spake of most disastrous chances, of moving accidents by flood and field, of hairbreadth escapes in the imminent deadly breach, of being taken by the insolent foe and sold to slavery, of my redemption thence, and portents in my traveller's history, wherein of Antra's vast deserts idle, rough quarries, rocks, and hills whose heads touch heaven. It was my hint to speak. Such was the process. And of the cannibals that each other eat. This to hear would Desdemona seriously incline, but still the house affairs would draw her thence, whichever as she could with haste dispatch, she'd come again, and with a greedy ear devour up my discourse. My story being done, she gave me for my pains a world of sighs. She swore. In faith, 'twas strange. 'Twas passing strange. 'Twas pitiful. 'Twas wondrous pitiful. She wished she had not heard it, and yet she wished that heaven had made her such a man. She thanked me and bade me, if I had a friend that loved her, I should but teach him how to tell my story, and that would woo her.
Upon this hint you spoke?
Yes. She loved me for the dangers I'd passed, and I loved her that she did pity them. This only is the witchcraft I've used.
But whence came evil to this lovely scene?
He's already answered that, Romeo. You're not paying attention.
I'm beginning to think I should pay closer attention to you.
Do so. You might learn something.
Gentlemen, just a moment ago we were speaking about brotherly love.
I'm sorry, Othello. I'm not myself this evening. No, of course I'm not. Shall we? Most certainly. Now, where were we?
I was explaining it was Iago, he the serpent, who crept into our paradise to take the dazzling fruits of wonderment and doubt to tempt me with, and so to turn me out.
Could he not leave well enough alone?
Had he some jealousy of love itself?
Aye, you've said it. He claimed he'd never known a man that knew precisely how to love himself. He little thought of love or any virtue. It was only in ourselves, he said, that we are thus august. Our bodies are our gardens to the which
our wills are gardeners. So if we will plant nettles or sow lettuce, to have it sterile with idleness or manured with industry, the power and corrigible authority lies in our wills. If the balance of our lives had not one scale of reason, to poise another of sensuality, the blood and baseness of our natures would conduct us to the most preposterous conclusions. But we have reason to cool our raging emotions, our carnal stings, our strong, unbitted lusts.
Therefore, he said, what we call love's no more than lust of blood. He placed more trust in money in the purse, which time could only then slowly consume, than in strong loves, which he supposed were short. I see, though all too late, that fruits of love to him were grapes that, falling short of, he did mark as sour.
Was there no happiness at all for you?
Oh, yes. For a while I basked in beauty. Oh, it gave me wonder great as my content to see her oft before me. My soul's joy. If after every tempest come such calms, may winds blow to their wakened death, and let the laboring bark climb hills of seas Olympus high, and duck again as low as hell from heaven. If for then to die, 'twere then to be most happy.
You looked about the world and saw but beauty.
Come, let us to the castle, friends, I cried. News, friends. Our wars are done. The Turks are drowned. Iago, that foul traitor, quick perceived the thunderous momentum of my love could serve to throw my soul off balance, as Orientals so employ the thrust of foes to overturn them on the charge. He noised about that Cassio loved her, which in a sense he did, but as a friend. He next related how my blessed wife returned that love, as indeed she should. And then, by sly exaggeration of the truth, began to build a vile and ugly structure. Now I do love her too, he claimed apart.
Not out of absolute lust, but partly led to diet my revenge. That I do think the lusty Moor hath leaped into my seat, the thought whereof doth like a poisonous mineral gnaw my innards, and nothing can or shall content my soul till I am evened with him wife for wife.
All this he said, though then I knew it not.
Or failing so, that I put the Moor at least into a jealousy so strong that judgment cannot cure. Which thing to do I'll have our Michael Cassio on the hip, abuse him to the Moor, in the rank garb make the Moor, thank me, love me, and reward me for making him egregiously an ass.
But if a man speak not but lies, my lord, was not some faint suspicion there aroused?
Had it been so, young friend, I would have questioned much of what the villain said.
But know you not the devil truly speaks 1,000 times that will believe one lie?
Some of the man's advice was sound, you see. He told me, for example, that good name in man or woman is the jewel of spirit.
Who steals my purse, steals trash. 'Tis something nothing to his mind is his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him, and makes me poor indeed.
By heaven, I'll know thy thoughts.
You cannot if my heart were in your hand, nor shall not whilst 'tis in my custody. Beware, my lord, of jealousy. 'Tis the green-eyed monster which doth mock the sorry meat it feeds on. That cuckold lives in bliss, who certain of his fate loves not his wronger, but oh, what damned minutes tells he o'er, who dotes, yet doubts, suspects, yet fondly loves. Good heaven, the souls of all my tribe defend from jealousy.
Man, be down! Thou hast set me on the rack. I swear 'tis better to be much abused than but to know it a little. What sense had I of her stolen hours of lust? I saw it not, thought it not, it harmed not me. I slept the next night well, fed well, was free and merry. I found not Cassio's kisses on her lips. He that is robbed, not wanting what is stolen, let him not know it, and is not robbed at all. I had been happy if the general camp, pioneers and all, had tasted her sweet body, so I had nothing known. Oh, no, forever farewell the tranquil mind, farewell content, farewell the plumed troops, and the big wars that make ambition virtue. Oh, farewell. Farewell the neighing steed and the shrill trump, the spirit-stirring drum, the ear-piercing fife, the royal banner, and all quality, pride, pomp, and circumstance of glorious war. And oh, you mortal engines, whose rude throats the immortal Jove's dread clamors counterfeit, farewell! Othello's occupation's gone. 'Twas thus I spoke, and thus I deeply felt. At last, to such a pitch of jealous rage, I rose, or as it fell, that sweet revenge was all I wanted, ordered Cassio's death, could not rest till I saw his blood. And then, most vile of all, snarled, snapped, an angry wolf at that dear child's throat.
Did not your love's denials, when at last you false accused her, give you pause?
There is a satisfaction vile in evil, though it turns on us and does us pain, we yet persist. Most of what we say the world is doing to us, we're doing to ourselves. I told my heaven's angel that she was false as hell, and wept the tears of madness.
I wonder if such deeds required, Iago, or are we equal to the fearful task of ordering our dismantlement ourselves? But we shall understand Iago not if he is but our scapegoat. There must be something hidden in our souls that wants to hear the worst.
Not in my case. Death separated me from love, but by a gross mistake.
My suffering far exceeds your own, dear Romeo. For to my sense of loss, there's added guilt, and each compounds the other 1,000-fold.
Does it indeed, my love?
Desdemona?
Then pray do tell why you could not escape your separate hell. Why, in your struggle between love and hate, you learned which one was weak and which was great. Love, it would seem, is a fair weather friend, and in the spring vows it will never end, but that in winter, when the fury comes, is shocked, is shaken, and at last succumbs. At least it's so with love of mortal men, who first would give a kingdom for a touch. We women know love's something else again. We love the more, expecting half as much.
Sweet soul, take heed of perjury. Thou art on thy deathbed. Therefore confess thee freely of thy sin, for to deny each article with oath cannot remove nor choke the strong conception that I do groan withal. Thou art to die. By heaven, I saw my handkerchief in his hand. Oh, perjured woman, thou dost stone my heart, and makest me call what I intended to a murder, which I thought a sacrifice.
And justice found you at the end, Othello? Pray say it did. I needs must think it so.
Yes. Mine the just deserts of infamy. Yet though fool I was, murderer, knave, I done the state some service, and they know it. No more of that. I pray you, in your letters, when you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am, nothing extenuate. nor set down aught in malice. Then must you speak of one that loved not wisely, but too well. Of one not easily jealous, but being wrought, perplexed in the extreme. Of one whose hand, like the base Indian, threw a pearl away richer than all his tribe. Of one whose subdued eyes, albeit unused to the melting mood, dropped tears as fast as the Arabian trees their medicinable gum. This set you down. And say beside that in Aleppo once, where a malignant and a turbaned Turk beat a Venetian and reduced the state, I took by the throat the circumcised dog and smote him. As at my dire end, I smote myself. So, gentlemen, because one villain lied, my dignity, my love, myself, all died.
Well, this has been a strange experience, I'm sure you would agree. I've been looking for Shakespeare himself, but without success. In any event, we've seen this evening some of the ways in which Shakespeare dealt with the theme of love. It's been interesting enough, needless to say, but I had hoped to put questions to the playwright himself directly, rather than just make inferences about his views on love from the fates and lines he devised for his characters. We're sorry to leave things so up in the air, but I'll tell you what, why don't you join us again next week for part 2 of our discussion. We hope Shakespeare will return, and if he does, we'll ask him about the most beautiful love poems ever written, his famous sonnets. No doubt his answers to that question will be instructive. Thank you, and good night.
This program is produced by KCET, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Meeting of Minds is provided by this station and other public television stations.